Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Thomas Rathbone from Waterborne International. I will be presenting today how to prepare and finish thermally modified wood. I have over 25 years experience in the coatings industry, just to give you a little bit about myself, with in excess of 12 years with Waterborne, which specializes in preparing and finishing exterior timber. So, as I say, we'll be discussing preparing and finishing of thermally modified timber. And the items that we'll be covering in this presentation are the substrate, the surface preparation, finishing, and maintenance. So to cover it, the substrate. Let us look at wood to start with. The normal aspect of wood is that it consists of cellulose, lignin, water, early wood, which is the fast growing, and late wood, which is the slow growing. The nature of thermally modified wood is slightly different. The chemical structure has been modified, water removed, the early and late wood stress is stabilized, it is highly durable and stable, and at the same time has a beautiful, warm, brown appearance. Now, there are factors that dictate how wood reacts when finished. With new wood, if we have new wood, new thermally modified timber, we face certain situations. Mildews. This is the hard, shiny surface created in the milling process. That's due to the cutters of the planer closing the wood's pores. It flattens the grain and it seals the wood surface. This does have drawbacks when it comes to applying a finish. It limits penetration of a finish. It affects adhesion of the finish and affects finish performance overall, because the product has this, it's like trying to paint on a mirrored surface. The other factor we have, if we look at some modified wood that's been allowed to weather, due to the UV breaks down the wood fibers, the color is lost, so the wood turns a silver gray. Now, in some instances, that's good. We want the wood to turn that color. If we need to leave it like that, that's fine. Weathered wood, it also opens up the grain of the wood. This means the wood retains moisture. That in turn can promote the growth of mildew and fungi, etc. Prolonged, particularly if you are in a north-facing environment or where there is a high moisture content, is a very good environment for algae, mildew, moss, etc. to go. We found on other substrates where it might be stone, it might be plastic, that if it's not cleaned, not left long enough, then algae will start to grow on timber. There are benefits, however, to allowing the wood to weather. It burns the mildews off, so it opens up the grain of the wood. This in turn allows any penetrating finish to get into the wood more deeply. And if you're applying a surface finish, it means it can attain greater adhesion. The results, finishes look a lot better and last longer. Now, what about surface preparation? How do we prepare that surface? There are considerations which we need to take into place. Is it new wood? Is it weathered? Is it previously coated? So, and what is the purpose of the preparation? Well, if it's new wood, it's to remove the mildews. It's to clean the surface, remove the weathering, particularly if the wood is in excess of 12 months old. Remove other surface contamination, things like air pollution, algae, kill off fungi or mold. Open up the pores of the wood, particularly if it's removing the mildews, and remove any previous finishes. We'll see later in the presentation a project that was done where modified timber, thermally modified wood had been previously coated. And we'll see how we removed the finish. Now, how do we prepare that surface? There are really two types, either sanding, chemical, or maybe a mixture of both. However, sanding, if we look at this first, has limited use. Yes, it removes the mill glaze because the sanding is abrasive, it opens up the wood's pores, but it does have drawbacks. It will not remove weathering or other contamination. That needs to be chemically removed. And it's dependent on the surface profile. If you've got not an intricate surface, or maybe a surface with a very narrow edge to it, say like a Tongan groove fixing, then you're going to either have an awful lot of unnecessary sanding, or you're not going to be able to do it. Chemical preparation of the wood, however, attacks all these areas. It removes the mill glaze. It opens up the wood's pores. It removes any weathering and other contamination. It cleans the surface, gets rid of that algae, gets rid of that grey denatured look, and it strips old finishes. So we're left with a nice, clean surface. It may need some sanding afterwards, but that will be far easier than just trying to sand the surface alone. Now, new wood. Let's look a bit more at the chemical process. So with new wood, there are two products we could use here. Aquanet, which is a sodium metasilicate product. PrepDeck, which is a sodium hydroxide product. Aquanet can be used undiluted. PrepDeck, you can use diluted. And in fact, for treating new wood, that's exactly how you would use it. Weathered wood. Well, if it's just weathered and it's not too old or not too heavily contaminated, then Netrol, which is an oxalic acid solution, is a perfect environment. It removes the dead denatured wood fibers. It will remove, or certainly a majority, as long as it's not stained the wood, of the algae. And in turn, it brightens and restores the wood's original color. If that wood is very heavily weathered or very heavily contaminated, then we could go with something stronger, such as the Aquanet or a dilute PrepDeck solution. Whatever we do, whenever we use either of those two last products, because they're an alkaline, as stated further below in the note section, you will need to brighten and neutralize the surface with an acid. In this case, oxalic, which is the most common product to use, and that would be Netrol. Now, what if it's coated wood? Well, there are different solutions depending on the coating that you're looking at. If we're looking at just old weathered oils, maybe it's got an old teak oil on, an old linseed oil, those get burnt into the wood. They hold the pollution and the weathering in it, then we could use Aquanet. If it's some other coating, maybe an old opaque stain or some other form of oil, then we could use PrepDeck, which is sodium hydroxide. On the other hand, if it's a painted surface, for whatever reason that somebody's wanted to paint it, then we could use the Dilunet. Or then we have a solvent-based stripper, which is the DSP 800. That will attack coatings that any of the other previous three will not get through. Dilunet tends to be limited in what it will do. It won't attack coatings that have polyurethanes and the likes in, but DSP 800 will. So you've got a variety of different strippers that you can use to prepare and remove the original coating or the previous coating that was applied. Now, taking on that further, you can see here, I mentioned earlier, we've got a project which had been previously coated. It's thermopine, previously coated. This coating was peeling, flaking. You can see the condition of it. This was completely stripped, brightened, and you can see the result on the right-hand side. We have a good, clean surface. It was a tongue and groove finish, so it got into those little joins between the tongue and groove and got everything out and brought it back to a beautiful, clean finish, ready for finishing. What about finishes? Well, with finishes, what is the purpose of them? Well, one is to control the moisture in and out of the wood. We want to be able to help that wood retain. We want to control the amount of moisture that's taken in by the wood and how it expels it, because that helps to stabilize the wood. Yes, thermowood is already a very stable product. We know that through its process. But by controlling the moisture in and out, we aid that stabilization. We protect the wood from moisture damage. So end grains, areas where moisture gets trapped, finishes will help to protect the wood from that. It minimizes, particularly if you want to maintain or restore the original color of the thermo wood, then a finish will minimize the UV damage from the sun, either because that finish has pigments in maybe, or if it's a clear finish, because it has transparent transoxides in. They provide resistance to mildew and other wood-loving fungi. No, they're not preservatives. There is mildew in the finish, mildewcides in the finish. They help to protect against any future attack by fungi and mildew. If it's already in the wood, then it must be treated first, but the finish prevents any future growth. It keeps that wood looking good longer. Very important if we want to have a good maintenance cycle and a long maintenance cycle. We need to keep that wood looking at its best for as long as we can. In addition, with something like thermowood, we want to encourage and look at that natural grain. Again, you will see later in the presentation where that project that we looked at in the surface preparation is finished, and it picks out the knots and the characters of the wood. We want to be able to do that with the finish. We want to be able to see those. Breathable finishes, so ones that may create a slight film on the surface, but still allow the wood to breathe moisture vapor, so they still minimize the stresses in the wood and allow the moisture to move in and out. Maintain the desired natural color of the wood, if that's what is requested. So, maintaining the natural look and feel of thermowood. There are different products. What we're going to do here today is look at penetrating finishes and look at a microfilm building finish. So what are the benefits of a penetrating finish? Why use a product that goes into the wood, creates no film on the surface? Well, as we said, it's non-film forming. So no peeling and flaking, something which you tend to see with old film building coatings. Sealing it, peeling, flaking, it starts to look unsightly. They're easy to maintain, no sanding required. Simply a matter, clean the surface, top up the finish. It enhances the natural look and characteristics of the wood. You can see the grain, the beauty of the wood, the character of it, the way it works, the knots in the wood. In addition, you can have oil or water-based, and we will look at both options that we have here today. So depending on whether you want an oil, which is completely colorless, or whether you need a water-based finish, which will have a bit of color in, we will still be able to maintain that lovely natural brown hue that you get with thermowood. So let's look at the oil-based finish. When we're looking at the oil-based, we need one with a high solids content. Textral HES has a high solids penetrating oil. It is somewhere in the region of about a 70% solids. Too thin, and that oil will disappear into the wood. It will take you coat upon coat upon coat to apply it. It will be pointless. We need something, and that happens because thermowood is so absorbent to oils. So using a very high solids penetrating oil allows you to get it into the wood and still give it good protection. It is genuine clear, plus 4 colors: light oak, medium oak, dark oak, and one other, which, sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. If you want to keep that natural clear finish, that is ideal. If you want something with a bit of color, but still try and see some of the brown without changing the brown, then one of the lighter colors is better. That will also give you slightly longer life because of the pigments in the finish giving additional UV protection. It's a dead flat matte finish, so it's nothing shiny. You're keeping the natural aspect of the wood. Easy application, one good liberal application of the wood. You can apply it, most importantly, with the correct preparation to either new or weathered thermowood. So if you want to maintain that very natural look of the thermowood right from the start, you can use this on that and it will maintain it. Use it whether it's on horizontal or vertical surfaces, cladding, decks, use it on chalets, thermo garden furniture, any of those type of products you can use it on. So it's ideal for those environments. Carrying on, what about waterborne finishes? Well, here we have the Aquadex. It's an acrylic alkyd mix. Again, it's a dead matte finish. Again, it's in a range of colors, 7 in this case. Because you can't really make a penetrating 100% clear finish, which will give except good long life, we opt for the honey finish. This gives what Owatrol term a wet look appearance. That is to say, when you look at that wood, when it's wet, whether it's been rained on or somebody's just taken a hose and sprayed it on, taking away the shiny effect that the water will give you, that is how the wood will look with the honey color on. So it gives you a very natural, enhanced look. But as I say, it's a matte finish. But if you want to see what it looks like, spray up the surface with water, and that's how you'll look with the honey. Again, like the HES, you can apply this to new or weathered thermowood, so you can keep that color. The honey color will definitely work very well on the darker brown color of the thermowood, and it will keep it. And how long it performs, well, like anything, that depends on the environment, but we will come to that later. Again, horizontal and vertical surfaces, decks, cladding, chalets, garden furniture, wherever the thermowood is being used. Well, but what about the industrial application, where you want to pre-stain the wood, deliver it to site already finished? For this, we have SI 106. Same color range as the Aquadex. Again, the honey color gives that wet look of finish. Again, use it to pre-stain decking or cladding. Maintenance, when it's due, is easy. You use the Aquadex. So, and we know projects where SI 106 has been used, where it's lasted 5, 6, even 7 years. Yes, it will all gradually lighten down, but it's still there. Now, We'd also talked about a microfilm build product. We have 100% water-based product, which is Tropitech. It's 100% acrylic. It's what I like to term a penetrating film finish. So it bonds, and by that I mean it bonds in and on the wood. So the first application goes into the wood, and then the subsequent 1 or 2 coats, depending on the age of the wood, if it's a decking, what sort of wear and tear it's going to get, you will apply another couple, 1 or 2 coats, and that will give you a lovely semi-transparent finish. Range of 5 colors, but again, we have the honey color, which highlights that natural look of the wood. It's particularly suited to areas of very high UV. It's excellent because it has high UV resistance. So places like Florida, for example, or maybe Australia, maybe the very South Mediterranean, where we get very high intense UV. It's also a breathable coating, so it's moisture vapor permeable. One other benefit is you can apply it to wet or dry wood. It actually means you could either apply a section, do a section of a project or a complete project, depending on the size of it, complete it and finish in a day, prep it and finish it in a day. There's no waiting for the wood to dry for you to be able to apply the product. Like the previous 2 finishes, yes, you can apply this to new or weathered thermo wood with the appropriate preparation. Again, horizontal and vertical surfaces, so decks or cladding, or even benches, chalets, it doesn't matter. You can use it on there. It will give you extra long life, but as I say, it is a slight film build, but it will gradually wear. So where do we go from there? We have here that project we looked at earlier. There it is, finished with textural HES clear in this case, and you can clearly see there how it's picked out the natural grain of the wood. We've got the knots there. The original beautiful brown hue of thermo wood is restored. And the maintenance then, when it comes time to it and when we cover it, will be so much easier. So what type? Let's look at the question. What type of finish do I use and when? Well, there's no real specific answer to this because it's dependent on your maintenance cycle. It's dependent on the appearance that is being looked for. And of course, at the end of the day, the client's wishes. Now, it's those and other factors such as exposure, where the site is, that will actually dictate the finish and process to be used. But one thing must be always kept in mind. There is a trade-off between the natural look and the maintenance cycle. So the more natural look you want, in other words, the clearer the finish you want, the more regular the maintenance cycle will be. So adding a bit of color maybe, but still trying to maintain that natural look could be the ideal solution. So it may be that you want to go for the Aquadex Honey, for example, against the Textural HES Clear. Why does this happen? It's very simple. In clear oils, you can only give so much UV resistance by adding transoxides to it. Once you get to a certain level, to attain more UV protection, you have to start adding pigments to the finish because they will start to give greater UV resistance. The more pigment you add, the less of the wood you see, but the greater UV resistance you get. And we end up finishing up in paint, which of course in this instance is not what we're looking for. So as I say, there is a bit of a trade-off between wanting a very natural look and how often you want to do that maintenance cycle. So let's carry on. Let's look at the maintenance. The next step. How do we maintain that wood? Well, maintenance depends on a number of factors, whether it's a horizontal or vertical surfaces. Why? Vertical surfaces will always weather more slowly than a horizontal surface, purely because they will get cleaned by the rain. The dirt won't stick to it in the same way. Horizontal surfaces tend to hold the heat more, and they tend to get greater UV exposure. Purely because they're horizontal, they hold that heat. It breaks down the finish faster than on a vertical surface. It also depends on the type of finish chosen. Is it clear, slightly colored, or highly colored? One thing there is certain, when it comes to maintaining penetrating finishes, as I said previously, no sanding required. It's simply a matter of cleaning the wood with Netrol, which will refresh any finish that's still there. It will remove any weathering and other surface contamination. So you are left with a lovely clean surface, still with product in there. And it's just then a matter of applying a single top-up application. But there is one other factor. It's not a single top-up application over the whole area. It's only where the finish has faded and you need to restore the color. So there may be sections of a building that have never faded. There may be sections that have slightly faded, going into areas that are more shaded. You just blend it in. So maintenance is much easier. No sanding, no heavy touching in, just a matter of topping up the application where it's required. Slightly different when we're looking at penetrating film finishes. Yes, no sanding required. Clean it. In this case, because we're talking about Tropitech, you'd use a dilute sodium hypochlorite solution, something around 1 to 3. We suggest a sodium hypochlorite content of 5 to 7%, but you can use something stronger if you wish. Touch in any bare areas and then apply, assuming that it's not in too poor a condition, then apply a single top-up application overall. If Tropitech has been allowed to really get back to a poor application, then our suggestion, contact Oatrol and we will advise on the best process for that particular site. So let's have a look. With the right products, Thermo Wood can take, in conclusion, an old, dull, peeling, flaking finish from this, to restoring the original color, or if that was the new Thermo Wood, maintaining the original color from new. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and please feel free to contact any Oatrol agent for any help or advice, or contact Lunawood, who will be able to put you in touch with us. Thank you.